He defied an entire empire for love. Not for glory, not for honor, but for a woman the world told him he should hate. He wore the uniform of the swastika. She carried the Star of David on her chest. One represented the machinery of death, the other, the target of it. And yet, in a forgotten corner of World War II, where shadows stretched like ghosts over Europe, a Nazi officer fell in love with a Jewish woman. And for that sin, history demanded blood. Before we begin, take a breath. Imagine the boots marching on frozen streets, the sound of warplanes overhead, the echo of orders barked without mercy. Imagine a world where love was a crime, where a look could mean punishment, where holding someone's hand could sign your own death sentence. Now imagine choosing love anyway. This is not a fairy tale. This is not a story with easy endings. This is a story torn from the bones of history. A story of betrayal, courage, forbidden love, and the terrible price that comes when two hearts refuse to obey the war that surrounds them. He was trained to obey Hitler. She was born to be erased by him. Yet fate, stubborn, unpredictable, beautifully cruel, placed their lives on a collision path. One letter hidden under a mattress, one risk taken in the dark, one trembling breath too close to discovery. And everything changed. Their story lived in secret for decades, whispered through surviving diary pages and memories that refused to die. Today, we open that silence. Today, we walk with them, through fear, through hope, and through a love powerful enough to challenge a regime built on hate. But before we dive into what happened, I want to know something from you. Right now, in the comments, tell me, from which city or country are you watching this video? I would love to see how far this story travels. How many people across the world still believe love can survive even in darkness? Because if this tale teaches us anything, it's that love, even forbidden, even doomed, can leave a mark deeper than war itself. Stay with me. What you are about to hear may change the way you look at history forever. Snow fell like silent ash over Krakow in the winter of 1942, coating the city in a white that did nothing to hide the darkness consuming it. Boots thundered across the streets, synchronized and merciless, the rhythm of a war machine that demanded total obedience. Among those marching was Captain Erich Müller, a rising Nazi officer whose strict posture and cold gaze could make other soldiers straighten up just by being near him. Erich was the kind of man the Reich valued, disciplined, loyal, unbending. He had memorized every command, every doctrine, every speech of the Führer until it echoed inside him like scripture. Feelings were unnecessary. Doubt was treason. Mercy was weakness. Or at least, that was what he had always believed. Until the day he saw her. She appeared like a flicker of color in a world drained to black and white. Elena Rosenfeld, a young Jewish woman forced into labor at a warehouse the Germans had seized. Her once bright eyes were tired, yet still held something the war hadn't stolen. A quiet fire, a courage she tried desperately to hide. Her fingers trembled as she sorted through piles of stolen belongings. Family photographs, books, children's toys. The evidence of thousands of lives erased. Erich shouldn't have noticed her, but he did. At first it was unintentional, a glance stolen when he passed by. Then he found reasons to circle back, to stand closer than protocol allowed, to observe how her lips moved silently while she read the titles of books in English, how she held a tiny locket to her chest before hiding it under her shirt as if protecting a piece of her soul. He reminded himself, she is the enemy. But the thought rang hollow. One night after inspection rounds, he lingered in the warehouse as the guards escorted the workers out. Elena walked last, her steps slow from exhaustion. A book slipped from her weakened grip and fell to the ground. Without thinking, Erich bent down and picked it up. He looked at the cover. Pride and Prejudice. A love story. Her breath caught. Please. They will punish me if I lose anything. He hesitated only a second, then placed the book gently in her hands. Their fingers brushed, a brief moment that struck like lightning through a storm. Their eyes locked. The world seemed to stop breathing. Be careful, he murmured. She nodded silently, but the fear in her eyes wasn't of him. It was of everything around them. That night, Eric couldn't sleep. His mind replayed that moment over and over. Her trembling hands, the gratitude in her voice, the spark he felt when their fingers touched. It terrified him more than any battle ever could. The next morning, he watched her again. His heart, a soldier long trained to march in only one direction, began to turn. He caught himself imagining things he had no right to imagine, freeing her, protecting her, hearing her laugh instead of seeing her afraid. That was when he noticed others were noticing him. A sergeant with cold eyes watched every movement. Soldiers whispered. Elena kept her gaze low, but he could see her fear. Fear for him now, not just herself. Eric's pulse pounded. The warehouse suddenly felt smaller, the walls closer, the danger thicker in the air. One wrong look, one careless gesture, and everything would shatter. Still, he didn't walk away. Later that evening, he saw her shivering violently from the cold. Without hesitation, he removed a spare coat from storage and slipped it behind her workstation when no one was watching. A tiny rebellion, a dangerous kindness. Elena noticed and looked up at him, a soft, disbelieving smile crossing her lips. The first he had ever seen from her. It was over. He knew it in that moment. He had crossed a line inside himself, and there was no path back. Because he didn't just want to protect her anymore. He wanted to save her. Days passed, and the thin thread between Eric and Elena grew tighter. Not through words, but through stolen glances, lingering touches, and acts of kindness too dangerous to speak aloud. Every time he handed her extra bread, every time he slowed his steps just to be near her, the universe seemed to tighten its grip around them both. One evening, as snow hammered the warehouse roof, Elena was late finishing her shift. She stayed behind, hands numb, sorting through the last box while the guards grew impatient. Eric ordered them to stand back, his voice colder than ice, and they obeyed without question. Authority was still on his side. For now. "Thank you," she whispered when they were alone. He shouldn't have replied, but he did. "You don't deserve this," he said quietly. "None of you do." Her eyes widened, not with fear, but with realization. The man before her was not like the others. Something inside him was cracking. "Elena," he said. Her name felt forbidden on his tongue. "If anyone notices, if they suspect—" "I know," she replied. "But why are you doing this?" He searched for an answer, but the truth felt too heavy to speak. "Because I can't watch you suffer," he finally admitted. "Not anymore." Her breath trembled. She looked down, clutching the locket under her shirt. "This was my mother's," she said softly. "She asked me to keep it safe. It's all I have left." Eric's voice lowered to a whisper. "I'll help you keep it." In that moment, the warehouse door slammed open. The sergeant, Herman Weiss, stepped inside, face sharp like a blade. His eyes flicked from Eric to Elena, and something dark curled into his smile. "What is this?" Herman asked, stepping closer. "Working late, prisoner?" Elena froze. Eric stood in front of her, instinctively shielding her from view, a gesture more dangerous than shouting rebellion. Herman's gaze narrowed. "I have seen the way you look at her, Captain." Silence. Heavy. Deadly. "You would risk your rank," Herman continued, voice drenched in poison. "For a Jew?" Eric forced his expression into steel. "My loyalty is unquestionable." The sergeant leaned in, eyes burning with suspicion. "We will see." He left without another word, but the danger he carried remained like a shadow in the room. Elena trembled. Eric reached toward her, stopped just inches away. "They're watching," she whispered. "I know," he said. "We must be careful now." But careful was no longer enough. That night, Eric sat alone in his quarters, staring at a map sprawled across his desk. Escape routes, guard schedules, border checkpoints. His heart pounded with a truth he could no longer avoid. If he didn't act soon, Elena would disappear like so many others, swallowed by the war machine. He could not let that happen. The next day, he forged papers. Papers that could mean life if no one questioned them, and death if they did. He hid them under the floorboard near the warehouse entrance. One step wrong, one glance from the wrong pair of eyes, and everything would collapse. When Elena saw him the next evening, she sensed it, something urgent, trembling beneath his calm surface. "What did you do?" she asked. "I created a way out." Her eyes filled with both hope and terror. "But Eric," she whispered, "they will kill you." He stepped closer, voice steady. "I would rather die helping you live than survive doing nothing." She closed her eyes, a tear slipping down her cheek. For the first time, she touched his face, gentle, hesitant, as if memorizing him. "We will run," she said. "But not yet, not until we have a real chance." He nodded, though every second felt like a fuse burning shorter. Footsteps echoed outside, sharp, hurried. Eric pulled away instantly, heart pounding. The warehouse door opened again. Herman entered with 2 more soldiers, watching him with the calm of a predator who has already chosen his prey. "Routine inspection," Herman said, eyes locked on Eric like a noose. Elena stood motionless, clutching the locket beneath her shirt, knowing one mistake could end everything. Eric forced himself to breathe. The war outside was nothing compared to the war inside his chest, and the countdown had begun. For 2 days, the warehouse lived in a quiet that felt like the moment before a storm, too still, too controlled, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Herman watched Eric like a hawk. Soldiers followed orders more rigidly. Elena felt eyes burning into her back even when no one was there. The world shrank into footsteps, whispers, and fear. But love grows even in the dark. Each time Eric passed her, he left a message hidden under a book, beneath a glove, inside a folded piece of paper. "Wait. Soon. Stay strong." She answered with a look, a small nod, the trembling lift of her eyes. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were planning. One night, when most guards were drunk with vodka stolen from confiscated homes, Eric led Elena to a shadowed corner. "We leave tomorrow night," he murmured. "During the storm, visibility will be low." Her breath caught. "Tomorrow." He nodded. "If we wait longer, Herman will make his move first." Lightning cracked outside, like the world agreeing, but fate was already listening. The next morning, as the workers lined up, Herman approached Elena. Too close. He grabbed her arm, rough, claiming. She gasped. Eric stepped forward so suddenly that soldiers stiffened. His voice was ice. "Unhand her." Herman smirked. "Why, Captain? Does her well-being concern you more than orders?" Elena's pulse hammered visibly at her throat. Eric's hand hovered near his pistol. A single breath separated life from disaster. At last, Herman released her, slowly, like a man savoring control. But his smile said he had seen everything he needed. Later that afternoon, Eric found Elena sitting alone, her hands shaking so hard she could barely hold the locket. "He knows," she whispered. "I know," he replied. "Then it's over," she said, tears gathering but refusing to fall. Eric cupped her face, a touch reckless, necessary. "No, it begins tonight." She closed her eyes. Just for a moment, she allowed herself to believe. That night, snow fell thick and heavy, perfect cover. Eric slipped out with forged documents, bread, a pistol, and a small silver cross that belonged to his mother. He would give it to Elena, not as faith, but as a promise. But when he reached the warehouse, she wasn't there. Her station empty. The workers gone. Only silence. Panic burst through him. He moved room to room, searching. No sign. Then he heard it. Muffled voices from the back storage area. He crept closer. Herman stood with Elena bound to a chair, her cheek bruised, her hair loose and wet from snow. Soldiers surrounded her, watching like vultures. Herman spoke calmly, cruelly. Tell me what he gave you. Tell me where he hid the papers. And I might let you live long enough to say goodbye to him." Elena bit her lip until it bled. She said nothing. Eric's heart slammed against his ribs. If he moved now, he could die. If he waited, she would. He stepped forward, revealing himself. "Let her go. She's done nothing wrong." Herman turned, as if he expected exactly that. Ah, there he is, the loyal Nazi with a Jew in his heart. The room went silent. Even the storm outside seemed to pause. "You will be court-martialed," Herman said softly, "unless you prove your allegiance right now." He tossed a pistol toward Eric, landing near his feet. "Shoot her," Herman said. "Prove you serve the Reich, not your shameful desire." Time stopped. Elena stared at Eric, not pleading, not begging, but trusting. Trust so deep it broke him. Eric's hand hovered over the gun. His breath shook. His uniform felt like a cage tightening around his throat. He looked at Herman, then at Elena. Then he made a choice, not the one they expected. With one swift movement, Eric grabbed the pistol and aimed it not at Elena, but at the soldiers blocking the exit. The room exploded into chaos. Shots fired. Bodies moved. Shouts echoed. Elena screamed his name. Eric dove forward, breaking the rope with his knife. She fell into his arms, trembling but alive. "Run!" he shouted. They sprinted through the back hallway, bullets splitting wood around them. They burst into the snow, breath sharp, legs burning. Behind them, Herman yelled, "You can't escape! I will hunt you both!" But they didn't stop, because love was finally louder than fear. Snow swallowed their footsteps as Eric and Elena ran into the night, lungs burning, the storm tearing through the sky like the world itself trying to stop them. Behind them, sirens wailed, sharp and metallic, slicing through the cold air. "Faster!" Eric urged, gripping her hand tightly as if letting go would mean losing her forever. Elena stumbled but kept moving, dress heavy with snow. Her breath came in desperate gasps. "I can't." "Yes, you can." He pulled her closer. "You're stronger than this war." Gunshots cracked behind them, bullets biting into trees. Splinters flew like shards of bone. Soldiers were close, too close. They reached the back road where an old military truck sat hidden beneath a tarp. Eric ripped it away, shoved Elena inside, and jumped in after her. His hands shook as he turned the ignition. The engine coughed like an old man, refusing, then roared alive. He slammed the pedal. The truck spun on ice, tires screaming, then lurched forward. Soldiers burst from the warehouse, their shouts swallowed by the storm. Muzzle flashes lit the snow like lightning from hell. Elena ducked. Eric kept his eyes forward, knuckles white against the wheel. "Where are we going?" she cried. "My family owned a cottage in the woods. No one knows about it. If we make it there, we have a chance." A chance. Just one. Fragile as glass. The road twisted like a serpent through the forest. Wind howled against the windshield. Branches whipped the metal frame. For a while, seconds, minutes, time blurred. There was only the sound of the engine and their breathing. Then Eric spoke softly, eyes fixed ahead. "If we survive this, I want you to have a life no one can take. You deserve sunlight, books, laughter. Not this." Elena stared at him. Really stared. As if memorizing every detail of his face. "You deserve that too," she whispered. He almost smiled, but then headlights appeared behind them. Multiple. Fast. Herman's men were coming. Eric cursed under his breath and took a sharp turn onto a narrow path. Branches scraped hard against the windows. The truck fishtailed, but he controlled it through sheer will. Snow thickened, blurring everything into white. "They're gaining on us," Elena said, voice trembling. "I know." He pushed the engine harder. Trees blurred into black silhouettes. The storm raged, winds screaming like lost souls. Then, a gunshot. The back window exploded. Elena cried out, covering her head. Eric's jaw tightened. Hold on! He turned abruptly onto a frozen river trail. The truck skidded, sliding dangerously close to the edge. One wrong move, and they'd plunge into black water beneath the ice. Behind them, the pursuers hesitated. Eric saw an opportunity. He cut the headlights and slipped off the trail into the woods, killing the engine. Silence fell, heavy, trembling. Only wind and their pounding hearts. They crouched inside the cabin, breathing shallowly. Elena's hand found his. What now? He looked at her, fear and determination burning side by side. We move on foot, quiet, slow. The cottage is less than a mile. She nodded, though tears shone in her eyes. I trust you. Words he never thought he deserved. Yet they kept him moving. They stepped into the snow, footprints filling behind them, swallowed by the storm. Trees loomed tall, shadows shifting like ghosts. Halfway there, Elena stumbled. Eric caught her, pulling her close, their faces inches apart, breath mingling like steam in frozen air. If we make it through this night, she whispered, promise me something. What? Promise me you won't regret choosing love over duty. He touched her cheek, thumb brushing away a tear. I regret only that I didn't choose sooner. She closed her eyes, leaning into his palm, a moment suspended, fragile, too beautiful for war. Then a branch snapped behind them. Not wind, footsteps, close. Eric pushed her behind him, drawing his pistol. The forest held its breath. They were no longer just running for freedom. They were running for life. The footsteps grew louder, crunching snow, heavy breathing, distant voices cutting through the cold like knives. Eric tightened his grip on the gun. Elena held her locket, whispering a prayer to a god she hadn't spoken to in months. Stay behind me, he murmured. Shadows shifted between trees. Shapes emerged. Herman's soldiers, lanterns swinging like hungry eyes in the darkness. They were sweeping the forest methodically, one step at a time, closing the circle. Eric led Elena deeper through the woods, moving low, silent, feeling his heartbeat in every bone. But the storm was fading, and with it their camouflage. Soon the moon began to pierce through clouds, silver light falling over the trees like truth. And truth was cruel. They reached the cottage, a small wooden structure half swallowed by ivy and snow. Warmth flickered inside from the fireplace Eric had lit earlier. It looked like a dream. Fragile. Impossible. Inside, he whispered. Elena rushed in. Eric barred the door, shoved furniture against it, and checked windows. His breath fogged the glass. In the distance, torches moved like restless stars. They'll find us, Elena said softly, voice breaking. You know they will. I know, he said, turning to face her. But not before I give you one last piece of freedom. He reached into his coat and pulled out forged documents, new identity papers bearing her name. A future. A life. She gasped, hand trembling as she touched them. You did all this? For me? He nodded. You must live. Even if I don't. No, she whispered fiercely, stepping closer. We live together, or not at all. He took her hands, holding them as if the world might steal them away. Elena, you saved me long before I saved you, he said. You made me see the truth. You gave me a reason to be human again. She pressed her forehead to his. And you gave me hope when hope was forbidden. They kissed, slow and trembling, as snow fell outside. The world pausing just long enough for two broken souls to meet in the middle of ruin. But destiny, as always, knocked violently. The door crashed inward. Soldiers flooded the room, guns raised. Herman stepped forward, face pale with fury and triumph. I warned you, he hissed. Love is weakness, and weakness dies. Eric moved without thinking, placing himself in front of Elena. Gunfire erupted, a sharp crack, a red bloom on Eric's coat. He staggered, eyes wide, breath stolen. Elena screamed, catching him before he fell, her hands staining with his blood. No, Eric, stay with me, she cried, voice shattering. He looked up at her, pain and love intertwined. I choose you, even now. Another shot fired. Herman fell this time, struck by a soldier who had hesitated, unwilling to execute a man protecting a woman he loved. Confusion rippled, shouts, chaos, but Elena heard nothing except Eric's weakening breath. His hand searched for hers. Elena, he whispered, voice fading like snow on skin. Live. For us. She sobbed, holding him against her heart. His eyes closed. Silence swallowed the room. It took 3 soldiers to pull her away from his body. She screamed, fought, clawed. But war does not return what it takes. In time, they released her into exile, believing her broken beyond threat. But Elena did not break. Years later, old and frail, she sat by a window with Eric's locket in one hand and the forged papers in the other. The world was quiet now. The war had ended. But love, her love, never had. She wrote their story so history could not bury it twice. Not in shame, but in honor. Ink like blood. Truth like a heartbeat. He defied Hitler, she wrote. Not for power, but for love. And love, even when doomed, was stronger than fear. And every winter, she returned to the place where snow once fell like blessings and bullets. She placed a white rose where he fell, whispered his name into the cold wind, and smiled. Because even through loss, love had survived, through her.